Hello and welcome back to the MVC PHP Framework series. In this video, I want to do a quick bug fix that has to do with the login from cookie method. So if you might have noticed this, if you had a cookie set and you weren't logged in, there is a problem with that. So we're going to fix that really quick. But the main purpose of this video is we're going to add a new feature to our framework so that we can display messages. Now, one of my subscribers commented on a video and said, hey, I want to be able to display a success message once I delete the contacts. Well, the problem is if you look in, let me rearrange my screen here real quick. Sorry about that. So if you look inside of our contacts deal here and you scroll down, let's see, where are you at? I'm sorry, I'm in the model. So if you go to the controllers and look at the contacts controller, what happens to delete is we forward to this delete, we post to this delete, and what we do is we redirect to the contacts page. Well, the reason we can't display a message right now is because the page refreshes very quickly. So there's two ways that we could do this. We could store these messages in the database, and then as soon as they load another page, we could just read these from the database and then mark them as read. But what we're going to do is add a session message, and we're going to add 4 different types of session messages so that you can, the next time the page is loaded, it will display the message, and then after that we'll delete that that session and it will no longer display. So let me show you what I mean. So first of all, before we get going on that, let's go ahead and clean up the bug real quick. So if you go to models and users.php and scroll down to the login user from cookie method right here, it's a static method. And the problem is the way this logic is written from line 71 down to line 77. It's just bad logic. So what we need to do here is if the user session doesn't exist, that can be false, and it'll actually break right here in this if statement. So what we're going to say is if user session and user session user ID is not equal to an empty string. So what happens here is when there's an if statement evaluated, if there's an AND, it won't actually get here because the error is it's actually looking for a user ID property on the user session, but the user session isn't an object. So we want to make sure that does exist before we try to check that. So when it evaluates this if statement, it's actually just going to evaluate this part, and since that's going to be false, it's going to jump out of that if statement. The next part of it is the user is defined inside of that if statement. And so we actually want to move all of this from line 77 to line 74, the if statement login and return user inside of that if statement. So just underneath that, paste that in there. And then down here, we're just going to return null. So basically, if this if it makes it pass out of this if statement, so there's no user session, it just returns null. So this will actually fix our login user from cookie bug. The other thing I just want to look at is make sure everywhere that you are using cookie, it's the correct case. I had another issue where it was all capital, and on my Mac it'll still work, but on Linux or anything else it won't work. Okay. So that should be our bug fix for this video. So now let's go ahead and let's add the ability to display a session message. So I looked on Bootstrap, which we already have loaded, and they have these 4 different alerts here for us, and we're going to use that, as well as there's a button to dismiss the alert. So what I want to do is let's go and just copy one of these from Bootstrap, and then go down to core and open up session.php. We're going to have a couple new static methods here that we're going to use. The first thing I want to do is we want to go ahead and do a display message, and this is going to be the most complex of it, and this is going to be a public static function display message. Okay, so there's 4 different types, and if you look at them, the 4 different types, so I'm going to say let's see, just say call this alerts, and we'll do an array. And so the 4 different alerts will be alert info, alert success, alert warning, and finally alert danger. Okay, these are going to be our 4 different alerts that we have. So what I want to do is I want to well, let's start our other method too, because we need a way to set these up. So our other method is going to be a public static function, and it's going to be set, let's see, how about we'll call it, since we call this display message, let's call this add message, I guess. And our add message is going to take 2 parameters. The first one's going to be type, and we're going to set that equal to info first by default. So if you don't well, you know what, let's not even add a default there. So let's just say type, and the second parameter is going to be our message. Okay, then what I want to do is we are going to add a message, we are going to give this, just say session name is equal to alert dash, and then we're going to concatenate on type. Then what we have to do is just say self, because we're going to use our self set function, so self set, and then we'll do session name as the first argument. The next argument we're just going to pass down message. Okay, so this will actually set up our session with this add message. Now, what I want to do is go ahead and do a dot comment on here, and I have a plugin in Atom that helps me do this easier, but you guys can just copy this. So I'm going to add a description here, and this is going to say adds a session alert message. Okay, and then for the param, type is going to be a string, and this for the description we're just going to put can be info, success, warning, or danger. Okay, and the reason, I'll show you why I'm doing this in a second. These dot comments are really cool, especially if you're doing documentation outside of the app, but also when you're using this function, it's going to give you reminders. The next param that we need is going to be the message, and that's also going to be a string, and this is going to be the message you want to display in the alert. Okay, so let's go and just see if this works. So let's go to our, let's see, let's do it on our contacts page. So, and we're not going to keep this. So if you go to contacts controller, and on our index, right here on our index action, what I want to do is I want to, at the top of here, I'm going to set up 4 of these. So what we need to do is we just say session, and this is how you're going to use that add message function. So right here, if I click that and I do that, now my IDE tells me that the first variable is going to be, you see I have all kinds of different stuff here. It says add a session alert message, and it tells me that my first parameter is a string, and it's type, and then I get this little thing here that says can be info, success, warning, or danger. So let's go ahead and add an info one, and then the second parameter, because of our dot comment, now my text editor tells me, hey, the message you want to display, and it has to be a string. So I'm going to say this is an info alert. We're just going to make these simple. We're just testing it. And then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this 3 more times. 1 second. Alright, so now this one we're going to change to a success. We'll change this one to warning. We'll change this one to danger. Okay. Now what I want to do is I just want to see if this is working. So I'm just going to use our helper static function dump and die. And what I want to dump and die is just session. Okay. So let's go ahead and refresh the page now. Okay, so we got a problem here, undefined variable self on the session file, and that's because I made a mistake here and I had a $sign there. It's just self : set. Alright, so now let's refresh the page. Alright, perfect. Now you can see my session that's set up, and we have alert info and then the string. There's our token, CSRF token, alert info, alert success, and then we had, this is from earlier, I had that set up, but then we have alert warning and alert danger. Okay, so our function is working correct. So now we can get rid of that dump and die. So go back to the controllers here. I'm going to get rid of the dump and die. I'm going to leave these for now, and then what we're going to do is create a function to display these on our page no matter where we're at. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and refresh. By refreshing that resets those session variables up. And then what I want to do is I want to go and go back to session, and then now we're going to work on this display message. So now that I have all the possible alerts, we're just going to loop through those. So for each alerts as alert. Okay. Before this for each, we actually probably want to set up our HTML. So we'll say HTML is equal to an empty string. After our for each, we're just going to return HTML. Then what I want to do is I want to go back to Bootstrap, and I want to go ahead and copy one of these. Okay. So for each alerts as alert, now we need to check if that alert exists in the session. So we're going to say if, and then we have this exist function. So we're going to say if self exists, we're going to pass down alert into that. So if that exists, now what I want to do is we're going to build out our alert. So we'll say HTML, and we'll concatenate on the string here. Alright, and we're going to do a little bit of work with this. So what I want to do is get rid of these 3 dots here. I'm going to bring this down to a new line, and then down here we'll do HTML dot equals. Alright, and then we need to do 2 things. We need to put our alert message down here. So this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say HTML, and we'll concatenate on, and this will be self, and then we can use our get method, and we're going to pass down alert. Okay, so that will put our alert message right here inside of this. The next thing I want to do is I want to add that I want to add the dismiss button at the top right of these. So if you look here, we need to give these a class of alert dismissible. So I'm going to copy that, and then inside of this here where it says class, I'm going to go ahead and put a space there and put alert dismissible. And then the last thing we have to do is add a button for that to work. So if you look at right here, I just clicked on this alerts JavaScript plugin, and then I'm going to copy this button right here. We'll go back, and then now the last part of this is we're going to say HTML paste that in there. I'm going to just make this all in one line here. Alright, and it has to be first before our message, so let's see if I got all this correct. Yep, I do. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that this class is the right color. So if you notice that this part of the class is the same as our alert, so what we're going to do is we're going to go here, we're going to delete that part out, and we're just going to put, we're going to break out of PHP there, we're going to break out of our string, and we're going to concatenate on alert, okay? Just like that. So this will be, if I don't have any mistakes, this will actually do our display. But we need to make sure we put this in a place that we don't want to have to remember to put this on all of our views. So the logical place to put this is actually in our layout. So we're going to go to Views, Layouts, and click on Default. And then what I want to do is right before this content body where the view gets plugged in, I want to go ahead and put this. So we'll echo out PHP, and then what we're echoing is session and then display message. Okay? That is all we'll need to do to display our messages on every single page that uses this layout. Now if you add additional layouts, you will need to remember to put that there. So let's go ahead now and go back to here, and I'm going to go to the home screen, and here we go. We went to home, and we have each one of these here. So I can dismiss these just like that, and so that works. If I go back to home, they're back, and that's because we haven't done anything to actually destroy the session. So the last thing that we need to do is destroy these sessions so that the next time the page loads, it's not here. So what we'll do is we'll go back here, and in our session function here, and inside of this for each, the last thing we want to do inside this if statement is we want to say self, and then we have this delete method here, which is a static method. So we'll say self delete, and then we're going to delete the alert. So that way it's going to set it up, add this to the display message, and then delete that session. So now if I go back to the home page and refresh, you see that it shows me one time, but if I refresh again, they'll be gone. There they go. So they only show up one time after the page loads, and that's what a session message is all about. If I go back to contacts and go to my contacts, they're back here, and that's because we had it in our contacts controller to add these session messages. So now that we know that it's working correctly, we've done all of our testing, we can delete this from the index on our contacts controller, and what we want to do is add it inside of our delete action. So if contact, then we do contact delete, and then we redirect. So after this delete right here, what I want to say is session add message, and this one will be success, and the message I want to say is contact has been deleted. Okay, so if everything works correctly, we'll go ahead and refresh. There's nothing here now. So now I'm going to just add a new contact that I can delete here. So I'm going to say delete me. Hit save. Now I have this delete me. So if I click delete, it'll say, are you sure? Click OK, and boom, it sends us back to the contacts, the redirect, and we can see that we have this session variable here. So it only does it one time. I can refresh the page and it'll be gone. See? It doesn't happen again. And that's the beauty of a session message, is it allows us to display a message after we have refreshed the page. And so in our instance of deleting the contact, that's the perfect time to do so. Alright then, well, I hope that's been helpful, and I hope that you guys will use these session messages when it makes sense to use them. You see we did it in a way that it's one line of code to add it, and since we put it in our layouts, it's just going to work and show up. Yeah, we could have easily changed this to danger or anything else, but it makes sense when something happens that's successful. We use the success session message. All right, so uh, um, thank you for following this series along. I know it's getting to be a long series and a lot of information, but our framework's actually becoming really awesome. And so I'm proud of it, and it's not the greatest framework in the world, but it's simple, it runs quickly, and we can use this as a jump-off point or a starting point for all of our future projects and write a whole lot less code by using this. The next thing that I want to do is we're probably going to refactor the way that our autoloaders work because I don't really like the way we're doing autoloading currently. We're going to use a standard called PSR4, and after that we may probably be wrapping up the framework series. I may continue to make the framework better after that. I don't know if I'll keep shooting videos for it. Possibly, especially if there's another bug that we discover that's kind of nasty, we'll fix that. But thank you guys so much. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe, and let me know if there's other features that you guys would like to see. Alright, see you guys in the next video.